here's the kicker. So this year, we got introduced to Aston Martin safety car and Aston Martin medical car.
You're talking a bright yellow Lamborghini.
Could you imagine a Lamborghini safety car on the track?
Hello and welcome to the Pointless Point podcast, where you're here with me, Joe, your host, and my co-host, Justin, and our second guest is Steve, who was on the channel on Tuesday night. If you're watching on YouTube at the moment, watch the Tuesday night race that Steve did his first ever commentary for. And how you doing, Steve?
Yeah, doing good, man. It was good fun on Tuesday, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Good, and obviously still back with the old familiar again, Justin. And how are you doing, mate? Got the giggles already?
I'm doing alright, mate. I'm doing alright. I hope whoever is listening, I hope you guys are doing well and having a good day. And we are here to make some pointless points about some pointless topics, where we will make some points about those topics.
Oh, you were better than me with that. Yeah, of course. So we're going to start with future Formula One news, of course, and around 2025 to do with teams and engines, and it's all been coming out in the news in the last couple of weeks. So Volkswagen in Formula One, or Audi in Formula One, whichever it's going to be. Well, actually, first, Steve, Volkswagen or Audi in Formula One? You have the choice.
They've got a number of options, though, don't they?
Yeah, I think those are the two main.
The two main ones. I think it would depend on. For me, I would bring Audi into the sport, to be honest. Audi are a big competitor with Mercedes in real life on road cars, so why not do it on the track? Because I don't think there's too many other places where they actually race against one another. So for me, it would be that one over Volkswagen, but it depends. Volkswagen's the main car group within them, so it depends on how they want to do it, because at the end of the day, it's all money and it's all sponsorship. So for me, I would go Audi. What about you?
Well, we'll go with Justin first. What about you? Before I give my opinion,
I'm gonna be honest. For me, best point of view here, I think it would be best to have both of them in. I think it would be kind of interesting, just because, like with Volkswagen, of course, they have a lot of history behind their name when it comes to like the GT GT racing and GR groups. When it comes to like endurance racing and like different other types of racing competitions. But with Audi, I think with Audi it could bump up let's say the Formula One's relativeness when it comes to racing, just because when it comes to the road cars, like you said, Steve, like Audi is when you think of Audi, you think of more like a high quality type of vehicle, where with the Volkswagens you kind of think like mid-class type of like consumers, where with Audis you think more like high-class, like celebrities and things like that. So I think Audi could be their best bet to increase publicity and increase as a brand as Formula One, but I would love to have both of them in, to be honest, just because of the history of Volkswagen.
Yeah, that is true. Obviously, they have that big scene in rallying, isn't it? WRC, isn't it? World Rally Championship. I was thinking of something else there. Of course, and they've done really well with. I think they've been using the Polo in recent. Well, obviously, it's not the Polo, but the Polo shape and somewhat of its chassis for rallying recently. But of course, Porsche's looking to come in as well. But they're a part of the Volkswagen group as well. But they're sort of coming in as their own entity, which I don't really understand the politics of that personally, but it's nice to potentially see Porsche. And of course, Porsche was going to come in this year if we hadn't have had what happened last year, of course, and what's going on at the moment still. But they would have potentially come in this year if the engine regs had changed, but obviously they got froze until 2025 now, isn't it? So hopefully we'll see Porsche in, but for me, I think I'd like an Audi as well. I think Audi would probably be their choice. But of course you've got Lamborghini as well, and Bugatti, of course, which usually holds the claim for fastest super hypercar, whatever you want to call it. But I do think Audi will probably be the most sensible choice. But of course, apart from that, it looks like the Volkswagen might be having a big link with the Red Bull team of some sort. So we don't know how that's going to play out. Has anyone got any ideas of what might happen?
I haven't
I
read
think they
too
might go
much.
along with it.
On
Oh,
you go,
go ahead,
Justin. On
Steve.
you go. No,
No,
on you go.
go ahead, Steve. You're first.
No, I haven't read much about it. It would be a tough one. I understand that Red Bull, they're going to be taken over from Honda themselves, and I think that might be a bit much for them. It's something they've never done before, so they kind of want somebody to come in who has done that before. In other words, Volkswagen or Audi or whoever it might be, Porsche, whoever it might be. So I think if there was a link there, it would make a lot of sense. They're both massive brands. They both got a lot of sponsorship. They can both bring in a lot of sponsorship because Red Bull bring in their own, and then the Volkswagen Group through their numerous other racing series, they can bring in plenty. So I don't think money is the issue, and I do think this is why they brought in the cost cap to bring these other teams in. But it does make a lot of sense to bring someone in to partner with Red Bull. But I think if you're going to do that, why not have your own team as well? You know, like Ferrari, who supply other teams, Mercedes, who supply other teams. Why couldn't they supply Red Bull, but also have their own team on the grid? We need to see more cars on the grid. It's not just about bringing in more manufacturers, it's getting more cars on the grid, and it's what we need.
It is definitely something we need. Of course, we can have up to 26 cars on the grid, I think, is the
That's right, yeah.
regulation. Yeah, and obviously we've only got 20. I've been quite used for 20, sort of on and off the past, what should we say, about 7 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've had a couple of occasions where we've had 22, or maybe one. I think the last one was 2016 when we had Manor as well. And obviously they sadly left and wasn't able to find a buyer from anyone else, and obviously Haas picked up that. But if Haas hadn't come in, we'd have 18 now. So at least we did, even though Haas are obviously firmly a back market this year. Yeah, we definitely need some more. And I think what you say, I think my only issue is, are Red Bull going to want an exclusive partner? Is the only thing is you know, it's that McLaren kind of story all over again, isn't it? In a sense, where Mercedes and sort of the Brawn era was the downfall of that with Brawn having the Mercedes engines and then vetoing that deal that McLaren had to have
Yeah.
exclusivity, and that sort of brought that downfall to McLaren, and obviously only just getting their first win last weekend since 2012. So yeah, I think you're right. I think I'd love like a. To be honest, they can do it in multiple ways. Volkswagen's got so many fingers in pies, haven't they? It's just it's a bit ridiculous. You could have a Volkswagen engine deal with Red Bull and an Audi works team, both using pretty much the exact same engine with a different badge on it.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that what they do basically with like teams? Like it's kind of like a group of four in it with like the Mercedes, the McLaren, the Aston Martin, and the Williams. Don't they all have like the same like engine provider?
Yeah,
Like
they're
with
all the
those four?
same. Yeah, but I'm just thinking about the marketing side of Red Bull, and in wanting
That is
sort of
true.
some exclusivity. You know, they can have a Volkswagen, which I've seen before actually. I've seen Volkswagen and Red Bull, like lower formulas, having sponsors of Volkswagen on their cars. So that really could be a realistic thing.
I actually hold on. I might have to butt in here because with going back to what you said, where with Formula One you can have up to 26 drivers on a circuit. Um, the thing is, if we put in like more manufacturers than what we have now, maybe we go over the 20th limit. Things like the point system and like, well, there's gonna be a lot more incidents. I think like it's gonna be a higher chance with more vehicles on the track, but also with the point system because as like it's usually always the top half get points. So So if they either increase the points up top or divide it lower down, if they increase the points up top, we could definitely see some new records to where who would get the most points in one season, basically, if there's like one outstanding driver.
You could see that, but on the other hand, when we used to have 24 cars, for example, they used to be like top six and top eight used to get points, didn't they? It was actually less than what they get now. So,
Oh wow.
and it doesn't, just because you don't get points doesn't mean it doesn't determine your championship. You can still be 14th and fighting for those positions, even though you're not getting points. It will determine the championship if a load of teams at the bottom are not getting points. But hopefully with these new regulations, anyway, it's gonna squeeze the pack up anyway. But it's kind of a shame that we're probably unlikely to see another team until 2025 by the looks of things. So we're going to be stuck with the 20 for about 10 years.
Do you?
That's what it sounds like, and I think one of these teams would have to basically decide by the end of this year, if not the start of next year, if they want to come into Formula One, because we saw how Honda struggled, and they had 3 years to build that engine before they came into Formula One, and they struggled big time when they came in. So it's not like Audi or Porsche or whoever decides to come in can just look. There's an engine done. Like Red Bull, there you go. You have yours. We'll have ours. Away we go. So if it's changing in 2025, as soon as they know the regs, they need to make the decision there and then whether they're going to come in if they want to have any chance of being competitive. I have to say, Justin brought up a good point. It would be tough. You look at the teams like HRT who were in Formula One and Manor, who you said they were in it. They ended up leaving because they weren't getting points, they weren't competitive, therefore they weren't getting the prize money. Are Audi or Volkswagen really going to want to stay and commit to Formula One for 10 years, where they might not have a good engine, or Mercedes and Red Bull are going to be at the top? If they're not competitive and they're not getting the prize money, what incentive do they have to stay in the sport? So maybe they would have to adjust the point system to be able to say, right, this is how it's going to go. I think a lot of conversations would have to be had in Formula One. It was a difficult sentence to get out.
It's a little tongue twister there, isn't it, man? It's just like our title, Pointless Point Podcast.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tongue twister.
It is. But yeah,
So
I would agree with you there. Like when you were saying, like, because I think if they add more drivers, they're gonna have to add more points, or possibly add a higher prize money, like for like the top drivers and top teams. Because I think that way is going to be the only way to actually have more people in and also keep it competitive.
hmm
Yeah, I think
I totally agree with your point.
well, if you had 26 drivers, I think it'd be fair to have like the top 14 get points, like in the top 14 or 15, or maybe at very minimum 12. But yeah, it would. I would love it. The other one that popped into my head, of course, that could potentially happen, and we wouldn't, as we were saying before, we'd like more teams, but you could have a Porsche works team, and Volkswagen could still have two teams. They could supply with Audi engines or Porsche engines, or say Audi engines to Red Bull, and take over their Red Bull sort of engine factory, and turn the second Red Bull team into an Audi team, but it's still a Red Bull sister team at heart, but just rebranded just like they did with Sauber. Like that's another one that might happen. There's endless possibilities of this.
I was going to say, what do you think Audi or whoever came in the Volkswagen group? Do you think they would end up buying an F2 team, having their own little feeder team for coming through? It depends on how that deal with Red Bull goes, doesn't it? And I don't think. Do you think Red Bull would want to give up AlphaTauri? It's a tough one, isn't it? There's so many questions, so many unanswered questions.
It
But
is very interesting. I think Honda have made a big mistake from leaving, though. I think
100%.
they did it before. Unfortunately, they didn't. Yeah, unfortunately for them, last time they left a year before they would have won the championship. This year, we still don't know what's going to happen, but they're very, very strong contenders for either being drivers' champion, both, or constructors. And is that just going to leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth at the end of the year?
I think it could. It does have the potential to actually have that type of result, but that's only if they actually don't decide to take initiative. That and like sometimes with these type of situations, it just comes down to the team that they have, or some sort of like reputation that they bring with them. So there's a lot of not variations, a lot of factors that come into this, and that's why it's going to take years and years and years to actually discuss this before everyone takes action. To be honest, like as
Yeah,
you said, it took Honda about 3 years, and they were struggling when they first joined.
yeah, it is
And
going to be a problem for a bit of a head scratch for other. But they got, as I said, they got to make the engines more relevant, haven't they? Um, that's just a given. I mean, they're amazing what they've got, but they're just so expensive. I mean,
well, of
four
course,
four engine manufacturers doesn't seem like too many to me, really.
Well, I mean, we have four at the moment, don't we?
Yeah, that's what I mean. We don't have. It doesn't feel like we have that many, really. It is a shame that Honda never had their own team. I was kind of surprised that that sort of, the Honda thing didn't happen with AlphaTauri, or even that might have been put on the table for Honda for them to stay. You don't know, but as I said, I think it will leave
but
a
aren't
bit of a sour
but isn't
taste in their mouth.
AlphaTauri sponsored by Honda?
No, it's powered by Honda, isn't it? It's not. It's not
Uh,
sponsored. So, but they could have had like a title sponsor thing. I don't know. It's just a shame to see them leave, and obviously they might leave on a high this year, but it might leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth, as I just said.
Yeah, but that's also the thing. It's going to take a long time for them to actually make a decision because I remember I was watching one of these videos about like an interview talking about actually Porsche coming into Formula One. Like as you said, they're supposed to be joining this year, but with the whole situation that's happened in the world, they really couldn't. But with F1 2025, when that year comes around, like the main objectives that with these teams that they if they want to get into Formula One, they basically have to follow like about five. Like it's basically shortened down, of course, but like there's like five key factors that they really gotta focus on. And like I'll say them real quick. Like the first one was environmental sustainability, social and automotive relevance. So basically, like how related can these teams be with their engines to the other drivers if they can keep up with the competition or be like Haas and just be like a backtrack team just to fill in a space. Just but
So that also means they have to be relevant to road cars. So that
exactly.
what they're wanting is they're basically saying we don't want to just be building engines that are solely for F1. We need to be able to use this technology elsewhere,
Yeah,
and they've got the point.
yeah, they have. You're right. No, it's exactly right. They do need to be more. What we thinking actually? This is I'm probably thinking we're going to be getting like a V4 next, and maybe staying with like a 1.6, and they're talking about having 50% hybrid engines next time, which
As
is
long as there is a
crazy.
powerful, I don't have an issue with it. I really don't.
No, it is the
And I think that's
future.
gonna be the key.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm quite glad that they've kept this same engine for so long, because everyone's had chance to get used to it, and it's not going to be such a big jump like they had last time with the V8s to the V6s. But I have to admit, talking about when fans say about the sound and all that, if you go back and watch the 2014 like highlights thing, the
Hmm.
engines sound like completely different now
Hmm.
to what they did then. They sound. I love the way they sound. Actually, they sound really futuristic. I think, and
Don't
um,
you feel it's a bit like the Halo? When the Halo came in, everybody complained and said it's not right, it's not Formula One. The same with when the engine changed. Now, you're just so used to it, it looks wrong without it, and it sounds strange without the engines we've got now. And yeah, you're right, they sound good. They sound futuristic with the whine from the hybrid engine. It's it's not a bad step in my eyes. Don't get me wrong, I love it a V10, but this is what it is now, and it's the way it has to go.
it's better than going electric. If you if
100%
you if
couldn't
you're gonna
agree
get
more.
anything, you would rather have this than anything else. And you know, I don't like the fact that these engines are so, they're like really raw, aren't they? They're not. They're so advanced in on sort of a pedestal, aren't they? And
Hmm.
as I said, it's not where it needs to be. I think it's great to see that sort of technology, but I don't
But
want F1 to turn into a spec series. But I like that it's sort of a hybrid of a spec series. Is looking like what it's going to turn into, especially with all these parts that are going to be able to interchange with teams. We've got close alliance, and I like that, but just don't take it too far.
no, and on Justin's point, just before you go into your next one, Justin, sorry, um,
No worries.
a 1.6 turbo hybrid engine is much more relevant to a road car than a 1.8 or whatever it was V10, V12, which is only useful in a handful of supercars around the world that most people won't get to drive.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, I love going back in this. I need to finish it actually. I started watching the Schumacher documentary on Netflix, and hearing the at the start like the I don't know if it was, I think it was a V10 going around Monaco, and I was like, oh, I miss that sound. But on the other hand, I think in some ways, if we went back, some people were like, actually, I quite miss the V6s. They had some of them
Yeah.
out there that people like. But yeah, I think it's going to be a V4. It'll probably be a 1.6 again, or I don't know, 1.6, 1. You might even go ridiculous and go for like a 1.2
If you're
V4
going to
engine.
if you're going to get most of your power from, well, half your power from the hybrid, then yeah, you could go smaller.
So, but it depends what sort of animals they want to make this time around, doesn't it? Um, because they
True,
are
but
they are just monsters at the minute. Have you
yeah,
actually? It's either
but that's the only thing though. Oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
I was
Sorry.
going to say is I don't think you would have Justin, but have you heard like you've been next to like an F1 car, like especially a modern day one, like
I'm gonna be honest.
live
Yes, I
running?
have actually.
You've been next to one running? Yeah, they are in.
Yeah. So
They're insane.
basically, back in 2016 when I visited my dad in Toronto, um, during around there, and I forget it was either 2016, probably 2015 or 2017. I forget which year it was, but it was one of those. And Formula One was in town in Canada, and we actually took a drive to the actual event because my dad really liked Formula One,
Yeah,
and well, I don't know what he's into now, to be honest, but I know back then, like at that time, he was into Formula One, and I believe it was one of the. It wasn't a Formula One, but I think it was like a Formula Two car that was like around like for show, and
hmm
they they fire it up in like in the middle of like a group of people, and I'm gonna be honest, just the vibrations from the floor, like of course the sound is very drastic even with those earplugs that they gave us, but just the vibrations off the
yeah,
ground,
it's
it
ridiculous.
just tell you how much of like how much power those cars have, and it was very interesting to see that firsthand.
What
But of
car
course,
was
it's
it?
always different. Um, oh, what color was?
What car was it? Do you know which one it was or what it was?
I'm gonna
Do you
be
remember?
honest. I only recently got into Formula One about 2 months ago, and back then I wouldn't have. I didn't even know what that thing was like when I first
Fair
saw it.
enough.
So I was completely amazed. But I remember it was like it kind of looked like the Red Bull. I'm gonna be honest. It kind of looked like the Red Bull, but it wasn't Red Bull. Like it had like the same color
I'm
variant
not.
of Red Bull that
I'm
you
not
see today, but
sure.
I just
I'm not that
forget the
that
actual
up on my liveries. Um. Anyway, a little bit off point. Um.
thing.
Uh. So going back,
Let's point
yeah,
this point.
you point this point. Uh. Don't start because it's just gonna get into giggles. Um.
Because he knows how I'll get.
Yeah.
I'll
No.
freaking
No.
promote
Don't.
everything.
Don't start. Or we'll start talking about Lee and his shoes again. Um.
Oh yeah.
Um. Yeah, so I definitely they're dropping the MGU H or is it MGUK? I think it's
Thought it
K.
was K.
Yeah, K that they're getting rid of now, aren't they? But they spent millions on developing them, so that is certainly gone down the drain for a lot of the teams, a lot of the engine suppliers. So last off, then if in your perfect, all right. So your perfect scenario for 2025, you've got Volkswagen and you've got Porsche, and you've got Red Bull. You got any ideas? If both of you got any ideas on what your perfect scenario would be for 25?
What's yours, Justin?
How many manufacturers?
Yeah, like we've got. Well, we've definitely got two teams on the cards, but are they both going to run on their own? What do you think will happen? They'll run on their own.
Well,
One will go with Red Bull, and one will be on their own with our 22 cars, or will we have what Steve said about like maybe an engine supply and then their own team as well? So we'll have 24 cars.
For me personally, like if Porsche the Porsche are serious about going into Formula One, but I think it would be pretty sick to see a merger, don't you think? Like seeing like Audi and Volkswagen come together to actually work on an engine, and then Porsche and Bugatti or something, or even Porsche. I could actually see Porsche joining in with the Mercedes. I'm gonna be honest, but
I don't see that
I say
happening. But okay, in just its perfect world.
well, I mean everything's on the table here. Like nothing's out of possibility at this point.
No, true.
But for me personally, I'd say, of course, with the teams that we have now, except for Nikita Mazepin in Haas, I'd say, like for me personally, I'd say it would be sick just to see all three of those just join in. But like with Volkswagen joining in, like as you said, joining in, but also have a team of their own.
Yeah.
I think that'll be pretty cool. But I could also see like Porsche and Audi run by themselves. I think. And with those big names, that they can, like, they do have, like, the people in like both the factories, the HR department, like everywhere, like everyone has the skills for like with Audi just to run by themselves. I think.
Yeah.
But only time will tell at this point.
100%. And I think for me, perfect scenario, first and foremost, get Lamborghini in there. Could you imagine Lamborghini versus Ferrari? They go at it in the road car game. Could you imagine them?
I
Yeah,
didn't even
very
think
true.
of that.
They go together they do GT championships. Is that right? So
Yeah.
they're sort of in the GT,
Yeah.
and so are Porsche. So for me, Lamborghini and Porsche, you can either run a Volkswagen, an Audi, or a Porsche engine. If you want to do it, bring in a Volkswagen engine, and if they want to supply Red Bull, whatever. But they also supply Porsche, and then they also supply Lamborghini. That way, it gets three brands out there for two car companies on the road. But for me, Lamborghini, because up against Ferrari and even up against Mercedes, and then Porsche again up against Mercedes, also Lamborghini against Aston Martin. And then here's the kicker.
Yeah.
So this year we got introduced to Aston Martin safety car and Aston Martin medical car.
You're talking a bright yellow Lamborghini.
Could
safety
you
car.
imagine a Lamborghini
Oh
safety
my
car on the track? Now, I spoke about this with a friend the other day.
Imagine a Bugatti safety car.
But that's what I was going to say. You have to be able to have a medical car, so you have to have something big enough to be a medical car as well.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
Lamborghini, not long ago, brought out the Lamborghini Urus, their massive SUV, which is about the same size as the Aston Martin one. So there's your medical car. Then you go and put a Huracan Performante or an Aventador out at the front of the track. That, to me, would be amazing. Porsche could maybe do it. I don't think they've got a fast enough SUV. I'm not sure, but could you imagine the possibilities?
They've got the Camaro. They've got the They got that Panamera thing as well, haven't they? That big four-door
They've got
saloon.
Panamera, yeah. And then you're right. They've got SUVs as well. So there you go. Could you imagine having 4 different safety cars, 4 different medical cars, all sharing the track? Burt Meinlander would have a ball.
Well, to be honest, I know it's a bit of a
think they should
downgrade, but
probably
you could have Audi as well. To be honest,
Mm-hmm.
you could have
Get
the
an
R8 safety
an
car.
R8 at the front, and then you get an RS6 as your medical car. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there is, and this for me personally, I think I'd love to see a Volkswagen engine like taking over the Red Bull engine company, having a Volkswagen engine like similar to what you said. I think the Lamborghini thing now you sort of sold that. So in that case, then I think I'd probably leave Volkswagen out the mix. Have an Audi engine deal with Red Bull. Have an Audi engine in the back of the Porsche, but just call it a Porsche engine, like a sponsor, like they used to with the Tag Heuer engines. Just call it a Porsche Tag Heuer engine. That was a thing. And yeah, then have your Lamborghini with either a Porsche or an Audi engine in the back of it would probably be my greatest. Then you've got 24 cars. I think 26 is probably a little too much. I think 24 is probably the nice number to have on the grid. Or should I say too many cars is too much? But yeah, that would probably be my best one. But the other one, of course, just quickly, what I'm very surprised we're not going to see like a Prema or Carlin in Formula One. Prema, especially with a Ferrari engine, obviously the F3 and F2 team, and they've been in for donkey's years, always winning championships. So I'm quite surprised that we haven't seen Prema being mentioned, maybe coming on to the F1 grid.
Do you not think that's a cost thing? Costs roughly 40 million euros a year to run an F2 team. You're talking at the moment 200 plus in Formula One.
Yeah, I just thought they might have had. I thought might have got a Ferrari backing from it, maybe having a solid B team on the grid.
That's what Haas is, though, in Alfa Romeo.
Very true.
It's difficult for those smaller teams to come up and be, oh, Ferrari, can we buy your bits? And Ferrari going, well, we already give bits to Alfa, we already give bits to Haas. You're just going to be another poor Ferrari on the grid. I don't think they want to do that.
No, that's.
And then if you've got another 10 teams wanting to join, then what?
Yeah, no.
Do we have 30 cars on the grid?
You've got to stop somewhere. So anyway, right. So rundown. Justin wants some mad engine deals or something with Mercedes, and Steve,
For no particular reason.
you want obviously Lamborghini, and the Lamborghini.
100%.
I'm guessing what, bright yellow or bright orange safety car.
They could do anything. I mean, their new Cyan's bright green, so they could do any. It depends on which car they wanted out there, but either way, it's going to stand out. Cannot deny that.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, so he wants Lamborghini on the grid with an engine deal with Red Bull, similar to what I would think would be the best option. So that's the quite near future. So on to second of three topics. Mr. George Russell, Mercedes AMG Petronas next year. Has he got what it takes? Firstly, we're not going to say to be a world champion, because I'm not going to go down that route, because we've got no idea what's going to happen next year with the regs.
For that, I would say yes.
I mean, we could have
I'm
Williams.
sorry, I had to answer that one.
We could have Williams being title favourites next year. You've just got. I mean, I'm probably being a bit outlandish with that, but no offence to any Williams fans listening. But I think that, talking about championship is probably unlikely. So up against, we can maybe throw it in there, but up against Lewis Hamilton, is he going to cut the mustard, Steve?
I think he's got what it takes to cut the mustard against Lewis Hamilton. I think the question is, will he be allowed to? That's the tough one for me. He's not going. He's going to challenge more than Bottas did, but I still think he might be asked to sit back. But if he knows that going into the team, I don't think George has a problem with that, because Lewis will retire in the next couple of years. Then that's George's team. So if he's told, look, sit back for a couple of years, help Lewis, then it's yours. You can go and do what you want. I don't think he would have a problem with that. But does he have the talent to do it? 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be sorry to quote one of my favourite things of all time, but a Star Wars quote. I think it's a bit of a master and apprentice sort of thing that I think is... I do. I think that's a sort of what is going to happen, I think. Mm-hmm. He's just going to take him under his wing. I think the first year he's going to be a bit of a Bottas, I think. And then year two, I think it's going to be more like 2013 Rosberg Hamilton, I think. And then if Lewis potentially stays for one more year, which I can see happening, I think it will be gloves off at that point. And I think by sort of year three, if he stays, it's a 2-year deal he's got, isn't it, Lewis? Or was it a 3-year deal?
2-year for Lewis and multi-year for George.
So we could be talking 3 to 5 there, couldn't we? With the multi-year. Yeah, I think he'll stay one more year. I think Lewis will probably stay till 24. And I think he'll probably then bow out then, is now my guess on that one. But yeah, I agree. But you just don't know what's going to happen next year, do you? You mean the Mercedes might be really, hopefully not, but they might be really dominant again.
Do you not think they could regress and go backwards though? It's
They could
brand new
do,
regulations.
but they haven't put anything into this year's car, which is telling, where Red Bull has put quite a lot into this year's car. Little upgrades now and again. I think Mercedes said they've only done one upgrade the whole year, so that's a bit telling. So I think my only thing is, are you gonna knock out a powerhouse like Mercedes? The engines aren't changing; it's only the aero, and they've lost a few of their engine guys, but I don't think they've lost many aero guys. So I think, they pack a big punch. They're heavyweights, and I think they're still going to be able to hit a few knockouts next year. I'm pretty
but at
sure
this
of
point,
it.
anything can happen because if you really think about it, remember Williams was one of the biggest names in Formula One. Like I don't know if it was early 90s or early 80s or whatever, but
90s, early 2000s, probably the
Yeah.
last time they
yeah,
were big hitters.
yeah. So Williams was like a big name, but look at the big names that everyone talks about now. They would always talk about Mercedes, Red Bull, then possibly McLaren, possibly after that will probably be like Aston Martin, and Williams is like near like the bottom half when we talk about the big teams. So basically, with these regulations, that could flip the whole script here. We could possibly see someone like I would be shocked, but someone like Haas go up top. But the thing is, that's just how basically if these teams and these drivers wants to have the best situation when it comes to the new regulations and the new everything for Formula One, they just have to be able to adapt to it. Because if they can't, then they're gonna be lost in the sandstorm,
And,
where
and,
everyone else will be ahead of it.
and that's why I think Mercedes will still be very good, because we've had, Steve, you'll be right, is it 3 regulation changes since 2014? I know minor, nothing major, apart from 2017, of course, which was pretty major, to be fair, and they still stayed out on top. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Mercedes, but I don't want them to be, to quote another sport, they're sort of the Man United of old, aren't they? The
Yeah, that's true.
You want
know,
a Leicester City, don't you?
You
Yeah.
do. It's exactly what you want, isn't it?
2015, 2016, Leicester City.
And that's, if we're going to talk about Leicester City next year, that would be Haas, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Were Leicester that bad? Were they? I don't know.
That'll
I think they were.
probably
It was
be like
1,000
Sunderland
to
if they were
1 to
still in
win the
Prem.
title. It was 1,000
Yeah.
to 1 to win the title. I remember at the time.
But that's
yeah,
what you want, isn't it?
yeah, of course. It's a brawn, isn't it? It's the same thing.
It's a brawn, yeah. You want somebody to come out the woodwork.
All right then, but just very quickly then. Any idea? If anyone, right, we'll look back at, or we'll listen back to this in just over a year. Who's next year's constructors champions? We're not going to go with drivers. That's a bit too.
Next
For
year.
me,
Yeah,
for me,
next year.
I'll just quickly jump in, Justin. Sorry, but just for me,
No worries.
I think it's hard to choose. But I think one thing that Mercedes have that really no other team have is I think they'll have 2 of the top 4 or 5 drivers in their car, and that will benefit them over the likes of, even the looks. If you look at Alpine, so they've got Fernando Alonso, who is a top driver, but I wouldn't put Ocon in as one of the top drivers, despite the fact he won Hungary.
No, he's very good, but he's
Red
not.
Bull, yeah. Perez is very good, but we've seen he still can't match Max. And then you've got McLaren, Lando, and then at the moment Daniel can't really match Lando. Obviously we've just had Italy, but looking at the average of the season, he can't match him. Whereas I think George can match Lewis, and those two trying to both be at the top will only push that team forward. So
Yeah.
that's why I have to stick with Mercedes right now. But honestly, what Justin said's correct. It's all up in the air with these reg changes. Haas, who have put no money into this year's car, could put all their money into next year's car
Could be a
and come
top
out
3
straight
team.
on top.
Yeah, it could be a top 3 team or top. What was it? 2018? They were the 4th fastest car that year.
Yeah, when they came in, even when they came into the sport, did they not, like, before the pit stops, they were sitting in like 4th and 5th in Melbourne before both their wheels fell off? And
Yeah,
that was like their-
yeah. But
so-
I mean, even their very, very first year in
Mhm.
F1, I think they finished out of the 11 teams. I think they finished 9th in the championship, which is incredible for a team in their first year not to be
Mhm.
at the bottom. So they have. I think Haas. We won't talk about Haas very much, but I think Haas needs. I think Gunter needs to go. I don't really know why he's still there. I don't really know why they sort of never changed anything up. It's sort of like they went for very much tunnel vision. We're going to do it this way, and they haven't changed. And they sort of peaked, and they've always. But as you said, it might change next year. We're probably going to give them another year, would be my guess, and then they'll show him the door if they're still around. Let's hope that Nikita Mazepin's dad doesn't buy the team, because I can't deal with another daddy driver. I can't deal with that. But yeah, no, I think McLaren next year, maybe. I think we could have a little surprise with McLaren. They've been getting so much better. I think the team's got, like, whenever I watch any of their social media stuff, it always just seems bouncy and like vibrant at McLaren. It just seems like a really nice place to work. Where under Ron, I think it was all very serious, and you're McLaren and you need to be a certain way, and they're not really like that anymore. I think Lewis would thrive at McLaren now. Actually, even though he loves Mercedes, of course, and he's never going to leave that now. But I think he would be really good back at McLaren now. Do you not think, Steve?
100%. Yeah, I could see him winning in that car in the next couple of years. Obviously, if the McLaren can come through, like you said, but yeah, he's not going back. I think he's got these next couple of years. I think if he doesn't get his 8th this year to become the best ever or the most winningest driver ever, then he'll stay on to try and do that. And if he can't, then he'll retire. And yeah, it would be a shame. But yeah, I think that's the only other team I could ever see Lewis driving for. I don't think he would ever drive for anybody else.
No, what about Ferrari? What about if Ferrari came knocking on the door with a 2-year contract?
Oh, I thought you meant about. Oh, well, yeah. I don't see Hamilton in the Ferrari. I wouldn't. I think both the Mercedes and the McLaren fans would never forgive him. That's.
No,
sorry, to go back to football. But
no, I don't think it's like that in F1 that much.
No.
I don't think it's so territorial in. I mean, Carlos went to Ferrari from McLaren last year, and they still seem to have a great relationship, like him and Lando and Zach.
That's true.
So, but that's what I mean. I think that'd probably be the only team if they came knocking with a 45 million euro a year, 2-year deal until it took him to like 40. I think that's probably his only way he would stay if Ferrari were competitive.
Which they haven't been for how long?
Is it 2 years now? They were competitive in
even
2019.
That was just 1 year.
That was with Sebastian Vettel, right?
Well, no, they had 17, 18, and 19. They were all pretty competitive, weren't they? 17.
That was Vettel and Kimi, wasn't it?
Yeah, 19 was Leclerc, obviously.
Yeah.
But they had that dodgy thing with the engine, didn't they? In 2019.
But I mean, like, when was the last time they properly fought for a title?
2017.
Properly. And before then?
2012.
2011 maybe? 2011, 2012. So they're inconsistent, and I don't think Lewis wants that. I don't think Lewis wants to be fighting around midfield where they are just now. And there would be no guarantee Ferrari would be up there, exactly what Justin said.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll tell you the other one that's big for George is in those 2 or 3 years to come, who's going to fill that seat when Hamilton leaves?
I say Lando.
Might see Max. You never know.
Max?
You
Really?
never know. You never know. They were talking about a Max Lewis team, weren't they, at one point? And I mean, that would have never gone well. Can you imagine the atmosphere now? Can you imagine the atmosphere now in that garage? After last weekend's debacle. Actually, quickly, as you weren't here to talk about the review, Steve. Racing incident, Max's fault, Lewis's fault. Quickly divulge.
So very quickly, I spoke about this with a couple of my other friends. For me, if I was viewing that, that's a racing incident for me. But I think what the FIA have to do is they have to come out and say, this is the rule. Either it's the person on the inside has the line and they have the right to squeeze whoever they want out, or they must give room. It seems that every week that changes. You look at Austria, somebody, was it Lando and Perez? They both squeezed someone wide on the exit of a corner. Penalty. But Lewis and Max do it to each other, and other drivers do it to each other on some other tracks, and it's the guy getting squeezed's fault all of a sudden. So there has to be clarification on this, because it's getting annoying that there seems to be no consistency with it. Exactly the same as, do you remember in Bahrain they were talking about track limits, and then track limits became the focus for a while. This is the new focus, and the FIA have to come out like they did in Bahrain and say, look, this is it, this is the rule, this is what the stewards are going to follow from now on, race like that, and if you don't, you're going to get penalised. So for me, it was a racing incident, but they have to clarify what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, it's got to be either one or two ways. I mean, the problem is, if what I said the other day is Max seems to push that limit all the time, and Lewis has got his sensible head on and does back out of these situations. And the first time that Max got in that situation, he didn't. And then suddenly it's Lewis not leaving space, and I just kind of thought, like, well, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, sort of. But as you said, like, there needs to be very clear. My belief was, if your front wheel is beside your rear wheel, you have to leave room. That is what I've always thought. I mean, if you're making a lunge from 50, 40, 30 metres back, he did kind of do that a little bit, Max, a little bit. I know there was a lot more closing speed. Then you're entitled not to leave the space, because you're not alongside into the corner. But I've always thought, but there are certain, you said there is some corners where there are grey areas, because the line you take into the corner can push you wide, and it feels like you're squeezing someone off, but you haven't really got a choice but to do that. So it is, some of them are, racing's tough to referee, and that.
The way I would referee it is, imagine the likes of Monaco or Azerbaijan. Imagine there's a wall where that white line is on both sides of the tracks. Would you have done that then? Do you think Lewis would have squeezed Max towards the wall, knowing if Max didn't get out of it in time, they both would have crashed? No, he wouldn't have done. He would have left him space. So why aren't you, just because Max can bail over some curbs? It just, yeah, you have to clarify it. For me, that just doesn't work.
I think, anyway, Steve, we should have you back for another FIA rulings of the year thing, talking about all the controversies of track limits, wheel-to-wheel racing. What else have we had this year? We've had like weird red and yellow flags, I think, as well, haven't we? The Belgium race, all that debacle with, had the race started, had it not?
Yeah.
All of that. How many laps have we done? How many laps have been discounted and all that? Yeah, anyway, I think that's for another day. We were just going to talk about George, but sort of started talking about here, there and everything. I don't mind. It's part of the fun. But no, very quickly track back to George. I think British racing drivers are pretty safe at the minute. You've got Lewis, who's still on the top of his game. We're not going to be here for too much longer, but I think he's going to try and bow out at the top of his game, or as much as he's got left. We've got George, you've got Lando. We've still got some juniors who haven't yet to come up. I mean, we've got amazing talent like Dan Tickton, only joking. But no, we have got some. But yeah, I think Lando and George. I can see Lando and George fighting for titles in the near future, for sure.
Definitely.
I think
just because of them being like British, you know how much of like an uprising, like possibly British fans that could bring.
Yeah, there's a lot of Hamilton haters. I'm not sure if Steve is a Hamilton hater or not.
No, I'm a Formula One lover.
Brilliant.
I honestly don't hate anyone. I hate the fanboys. That's what I hate.
Hate the fanboys. There you go. You've heard it here first, exclusively. Steve hates the fanboys. So, what about if they're just passionate?
No, there's passionate, but like the Hamilton fanboys or the Max fanboys who, no matter what happens, they cannot see the other side of you. It's always the other person's fault. Can't stand those people. And just so you know, I'm an Alpine fan. Have been for years. I followed Renault all the years, so Renault and
Oh,
Alpine. I'm an
okay. Well,
Alpine
what,
fan.
all the way from the blue and yellow days
All
back
the
in
way
the
from the
year.
blue and yellow. So it actually started in Alonso's years, 2005, 2006. That's when I started watching Formula One, and I
About the same
became a
time as
glory
me.
hunter. But I've followed them ever since. So
Ah, well, you're not a glory hogger anymore, are you?
no,
So,
no, not at all.
um,
Well, that makes things interesting.
yeah, I've always sort of, to be fair, I quite like Mercedes when, I've sort of been a bit of a Lewis fan. I kind of followed Lewis in GP2 and carried on, and now everyone calls me like this Lewis fanboy and I'm a glory supporter, but it's not the case. I've just always,
You
it's
just know
just a
your
bit,
history.
it's just luck,
Mhm.
really. But I'm not like a Hamilton fanboy. Like if Lewis has done something wrong, I will like put my hand up to it. I'm not going to defend him to the hill. Just like with the Max this weekend, I'm sort of on the side of Lewis in the sense that Max has done a lot of pushing and shoving off at turn ones and things all year, and then he kind of got it back, and he didn't, in my opinion, he didn't really like it. But usually I wouldn't be so anti Max. Right, so to talk about the final subject, the most fun circuit of them all on the F1 calendar of the 22 races I think we're having now this year. Only joking, it's the Sochi International Autodrome pile of garbage, most rubbish Tilke track I've ever witnessed in my life, sponsored by Heineken. No,
I was
I
about to say, like,
I
when you started saying
really,
that, I was like, are
really,
you serious?
I hate Russia in real life. I hate it in the F1 game. I can't stand it. Like, what I need to, I should have looked that up. That was really silly. What's the new track called we're going to in Russia in a couple of years? Does anyone
The
know?
Agora Drive circuit in St.
That's,
Petersburg.
I knew Steve would know it. I knew he would know it.
He knows his stuff. He knows his stuff.
I know my stuff, man.
That track looks quite fun. It's quite short.
How many times have we said that though, and it's been a disappointment?
Very true. Okay, I know Justin can't really answer this fully. Steve, your thoughts
No.
on Sochi?
Oh, horrible track. Not going to lie. Doesn't lend itself to too much overtaking, although we could say that about half the tracks on the grid. To be
Is
honest,
that
like
the cars though?
that's the cars, mate. Yeah, 100%. I mean, Monza used to be a place you could overtake willy nilly, and then we saw how hard it was for some of the guys to overtake. Sochi, though, I don't blame Tilke too much. You know, he was left with was it the Olympic Park? He had to
Yeah,
design something around that, so he was limited in his capacity to deal with that. But yeah, it's not really a fun track. I don't think any of the drivers particularly enjoy it. You know, like they all said Zandvoort was amazing, but it won't lend to good racing. Well, I don't think any of them ever come out and go, "Oh, Sochi's amazing. I love that track." It's not a good track, but I can't wait for them to move. It's a move that should have been done 2, 3, 4 years ago. But it's where we're racing, and yeah, I think I think it's more of a power track. I think it lends itself more to Mercedes than it will the Red Bull. So, looking forward to seeing who comes out on top in that one.
yeah, and
Well, if you
well,
guys
my,
remember last year, like Bottas, that was the race that he won last year,
I think it was the only one he won last year,
Hamilton.
wasn't it? Oh no, he
I
won.
think
He
so.
won. No, he won Austria, the
Hmm.
first race of the year as well. I think. Yeah,
Oh yeah, but
Bottas
because
is
like
very
Hamilton also
unforgettable
got the
with his
pole,
wins.
right? Because Hamilton
So,
got the pole in that race last year.
Yeah, and Valtteri like let it seemed like he gave Max a bit of a toe, if I remember, in qualifying to give Valtteri third place. And is that 3 place grid penalty for Max actually going to be kind of a good thing?
Ooh, actually, yeah. Now that you say that,
If he
like
gets
no.
if he
that's
gets
gonna be
pole position,
detrimental.
is that what Red Bull are really going to be wanting? Really, like they're going to think actually we want to start third, so if we guarantee ourselves pole, we've actually got the best spot on the grid, because obviously turn one is not a corner, as per usual. Apologies if anyone can hear a small creature, do apologise.
Yeah, it's a little bit
he's
cute.
still
It's alright.
he's still going. Yeah, turn one isn't a corner. Obviously, the first braking zone is turn 2 and 3. It's one corner, isn't it? I always get confused with this. Turn 3 is a long left-hander, and of course that's where Carlos Sainz tried to be a fucking hero. Lando Norris said last year. Lando said a lot of bad things last year. Actually, I remember what he called Stroll at Portimao. If anyone's heard that radio, go and listen to it. It's pretty funny. Sochi's just. We were going to talk about Sochi, but honestly, I don't really know what to talk about. It's very Mercedes dominant. I suppose this might be the only race we see Valtteri win. Maybe. He seems to always be quite good at Sochi.
Yeah, he's won it a couple of times, hasn't he?
2017, his first win. Should have won 20, was it 19?
That rings a bell, yeah.
And they gave the position to... No, it was 2018, I think. And they gave the position to Lewis because of Vettel closing, and then they didn't give the position back, which was a bit harsh. Sochi's just... As you said, I think Sochi should have been... The track should have been built, and then they should have built the park.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they should have done it. But instead, they gave him, as you said, they gave him like a quarter of a canvas to create something in. And it just... I'm sure when you go there, I'm sure it looks amazing. Like with all the Olympic parks and stuff. I'm sure it's an amazing... But that's the problem with F1 in recent times, isn't it? It's all about the architecture. It's all about being under the lights. And it's all about like the nicest hotels. And
it's money. It's just money.
Money talks.
Which is why I'm surprised Russia haven't got a proper Formula One circuit. Russia's got money. So if they're that desperate to be holding F1 races, why haven't they built a purpose-built track for Formula One?
Yeah.
Somewhere in the country.
Because it would be Abu Dhabi.
Well, yeah.
that's
get somebody else except Tilke to design it, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know who is Herman Tilke? Was he a racing driver or?
I don't think so. No, I think he's an architect.
He's just an architect.
Oh no, he was a racing driver. Sorry, I apologise.
I thought he might have been. Yeah, no, they need. I think personally, for me, I think in the last decade, I think my favourite Tilke track is probably USA. But USA is just borrowed from a load of different tracks, but it just works. I think the thing about USA is it's actually got some elevation change in it. It's a bit quirky, but all its other tracks are all deadpan, flat. Apart from like China, I think is okay. Bahrain, I think is amazing. He's like Marmite, isn't he? Some his tracks either hit the spot or they're just forgettable and all about the architecture. It's either about good racing or good architecture. There's never a bit of both. So, yeah, predictions, anyone then? Top 3 for Russia. We'll predict this now and we'll listen back in a couple of weeks and see if we got it right.
Justin?
I'm actually going to put out a bold statement here. I think there's going to be another incident between Hamilton and Verstappen. So, my top 3, I think this race could be Lando Norris's first ever win. That's who I'm going to put up top.
Oh, now you're going brave.
Yeah, I know, right?
Second, I would put Bottas.
You know we got money on this, right? 100 quid.
Wait, hold on. I didn't do that. but for third, I might think Leclerc.
So what was that? It was Norris. Who was second?
Norris, Bottas, then Leclerc.
I
know it's not the most popular opinion. I definitely know that, but I just want to try something bold and see if it actually comes out. And if it does, you all deserve to say that I have beginner's luck.
All right, but we'll listen.
That's all it is.
Back to that. You, Steve, you got any?
Bottas will win it.
Yeah.
I honestly think Hamilton will come second. And I'm going to put Lando third. I don't think Max Verstappen will be on the podium this weekend.
Next weekend.
I think that... next weekend. That 3-place grid penalty is going to hurt him. I think the highest he might qualify will be third. He drops back to 6th. The only person that will help him is Perez. and that's if Perez can get up there, which he hasn't done consistently. So I think it's a tough one. One thing I will ask both of you though is if Lando Norris is in third and Max Verstappen's in fourth, do you think Lando lets him through because they're very good friends? Or is it all about I need to do what I have to do for McLaren?
It's your helmet's on, mate. So I don't think there's any friendship when the helmet's on. I think there's a certain point. I don't think he'd let him through. No way in hell.
Even though he's fighting for a championship?
No, I don't think so.
Lando,
I think it'll be too obvious.
Fighting for it as well?
No.
Well, I mean, he's still up there, but he still wants to like hold his position.
I think he's mathematically, like, he can do it, but I don't think he's not going to be able to do it. He hasn't got a win, so it's a two-way fight for the title for sure. To go to my prediction, I'm going to go really boring and go Bothamber. That's it. It's boring. It's boring, and I think, you know, with that £100 now I've got on it, I'm definitely going for Bothamber. So yeah, Bottas, Hamilton.
Wait, if you're putting £100 on it, that's gonna be like around 140, 150 bucks for me. Damn it.
Yeah. That's what happens when you live across that side of the
You're
world.
going to have to go and learn off Lee and go and steal some shoes, mate.
I guess I'm going to have to sell my VR headset. Or my PlayStation.
Well, you can sell that to me if you like. I'll have that.
No.
Right, anyway. On that note, I think we would be struggling around to talk about anything else about Sochi now. Yeah, great race. I think we've covered everything to do with Sochi. That there's nothing else that we can talk about. Anyway, thanks very much everyone for watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify. If you were watching on YouTube, I would have put some lovely pictures up of what we've been talking about. Of course, probably not some topless pictures of George, even though you probably will want me to do that.
Oh, come on.
Right.
Teasing
me right there.
Good
Yeah.
thing we did not see that. I would have been scarred in my dreams. I mean, let's move on. So.
Okay. All right. Anyway, thank you very much, Justin. Once again, been a pleasure, and thanks, Steve. I hope you quite enjoyed that. I'm sure you could have chatted a lot longer about a lot more things.
I could have, and yeah, that was really good fun actually. Yeah.
Brilliant.
We'll probably see you again, definitely.
I think we will.
If not, I'll probably have to urge Joe to get you back on here because it was really fun.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking about you losing your job, Justin.
I'm coming for your commentator job and your podcast job.
I guess I'll be the cameraman. I mean, I am technically a videographer, so if we ever meet up in real life, it could. But don't get any ideas.
Joe, is he talking his way into getting fired? Is that what he's just done?
I think.
Oh no!
I think so. I was already paying him in pennies. He's just not going to get anything now.
Pay me in pennies, mate. What? Why? I guess I missed the shipping. Actually, that would have been the shipping. Actually, would be the pennies.
Yeah.
That would have been the cost. Damn.
Anyway, on that note, we'll leave it there. Thanks everyone for listening, and thanks to you too as well. We'll be back next week with another podcast, and of course on Sunday or Monday it will be released. We'll be talking about the Sochi race at the Sochi Autodrome for the Russian Grand Prix, of course. So thanks very much, you two, and it's goodbye from all of us.
Goodbye.
See you later.